America has this loneliness crisis. Everybody keeps talking about these articles about how we're all lonely, we're more divided than ever. We're all hyper individualistic. Everybody's trying to do their own thing and no one feels like they're part of a community or the village like we used to be. And then to go down here and see people doing these traditions, holding on to their Cajun heritage, trying to like keep that French going, trying to keep these Mardi Gras traditions going, and everybody feeling like no matter where you are, you can join in. And in fact, you're supposed to join in. You're not supposed to stand off on the sideline. You're supposed to come in and do this kind of thing. And I think that's what could be possibly what makes Mardi Gras great.
Glad to have you. I'm Carter Semino, host of AcadianaCasts Presents. You can follow AcadianaCasts, subscribe on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We'll have the website back up and running very, very soon. All of your South Louisiana sourced content's what we specialize in here at AcadianaCasts. And normally we're talking on this show to folks around the Acadiana area or South Louisiana in general, who are doing kind of cool stuff, cool topics, people doing interesting things. This time's a little different. We're actually doing a remote interview, bringing someone in all the way from New York who has an exciting new documentary that's going to be coming out on February 18th. His name is Jackson Garrett. The documentary is called Gatherings, Cajun Mardi Gras. It is a Vice documentary. Y'all remember Vice? They've always been doing really cool journalistic stories, documentaries, and it's cool to see that they have come down to Southwest Louisiana to see the real Mardi Gras, the Courrier de Mardi Gras. So with that being said, let's bring Jackson in on camera. Jackson, thanks so much for joining us today, dude.
Thank you. And thanks for everybody welcoming me into this community so we can make this documentary.
Yeah, man. So just a little bit of background on you. You're originally from Montgomery, Alabama, from the South. And you wanted to kind of tell stories about, Southern traditions, culture, different communities. What got you to wanted to, I guess, first pitching to Vice and your bosses over there to come down to Louisiana and do something about Mardi Gras?
My dad's from Mobile, where they claim is the original Mardi Gras, the first Mardi Gras. People in Louisiana will fight us for that kind of thing, but I've always loved Mardi Gras. And up here, I was always surprised how few people knew about it at all. Not even just, New Orleans, sure. It's got, when you say Mardi Gras, people think New Orleans. Up here, they didn't even think that, half the time. I was like 50% of the time, maybe they would even know that is. I bring King's Cake into the office every year to celebrate. I'm like, man, this is annoying a little bit that you guys don't know what this is and how cool this is. So I wanted to kind of pitch, let's go show them that there's this amazing thing called Mardi Gras. And not only that, there's this cool, diverse combination of celebrations across the Gulf Coast. They could show the Mobile version, the New Orleans version, the Cajun version. It was a little ambitious to do all those in a week or so. And we would kind of be glancing off of each one of those, not learning a ton, but experiencing a ton of fun stuff. But the more we looked into Cajun Mardi Gras, the more we're like, you know what? We need to sit in this a little longer. We need to talk to some experts. We need to learn something and really go deep here. And I'm really glad we did.
Yeah. So on talking to some of those experts, we've had a couple of them that I believe are featured in this documentary on this show. But who are some of the people that you came in contact with? How did you come in contact with them? And how was that experience?
Some of the big names I'm sure you've talked to before, like Jordan Thibodeau, Cajun musician, Cajun cowboy, Cajun ambassador, as we called him in the documentary. He was a great interview. He took us out on his boat in Cypress Cove and told us a lot about Cajun culture and history. And, that was a unique experience. If you follow him on social media, he does a lot of cool French jokes, which I thought was really interesting. That's how I ran into him. That was one of the coolest things I learned while I was down there is how much the younger community in Cajun country is embracing their French roots and really trying to bring back that culture that was almost literally beat out of them, So that was really cool to see. Sat down with Joel Savoy, of the Cajun family of Savoys. He was kind of our main guy. He does a run down there in Louisiana that we participated in. And his big thing was that we couldn't come and just spectate or kind of take away from these runs. We had to be part of it, which was music to our ears. And he was one of the first people to kind of lay down the law to us. And, for Vice, Vice is gonzo journalism. We love to get dirty and in with it. So when we heard that Cajun Mardi Gras and Courier is very participatory, it was music to our ears. We were totally in. I'm personally in. I wanted to do it. I didn't want to stay on the sidelines. I wanted to get muddy.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I love the most about Vice and the documentaries that have come out over the years is just the immersiveness that the journalists and documentarians do. They put themselves right in the thick of things, and boy, it looks like seeing some of the clips on your Instagram that you really did it. It's so talking to some of these guys. How do you make that connection? Do you discover these people through social media? Do you come recommended? Just your own research? How do you find these people?
I mean, you just kind of have to throw out a large net and see what you catch a little bit. Social media is super helpful. You know, Jordan's all over social media, so it's easy to kind of find someone like that that's already willing to be on camera, that's already willing to be an ambassador out there in the media sphere. So if you look at a lot of documentaries, you'll see a lot of that where if you look up the person, they've probably got some sort of following because that's one of the few people that you can find, one, and two, that's willing to do this stuff. You can always find great historians and great people that want to talk about their community, but they're not always comfortable on camera. So you kind of have to find that combination of people. Once I found somebody like Jordan, I read as many articles as I could about Cajun Mardi Gras. I have a book over here I read, The Cajuns, that was very good in learning some of this stuff before I went down. I try to learn as much as possible before we get super into stuff. And some of the articles, I reached out to their writers and asked who's good to talk to in the community. That's how I found Joel. Another guy we interviewed was Mr. Weatherall, which I'm sure people on this show know. Everybody knows Mr. Weatherall, even though maybe not everybody up here, but he's viral for videoing all the parades around Louisiana. And I think of him as like a short form documentarian of the culture down there. So we reached out to him, talked to him out there outside of Church Point, which was really interesting. We met a chicken named Mr. Featherall while we were down there, which was fun. And then ultimately the last person we released, I guess another one is this guy named Drake. I can't remember his last name right now. I know he was on LeBlanc. And I know I just got done listening to some of your podcasts with him. He was great too. We found him while we were out there. And then the last person we talked to was Lindsay Swarski, who helped us create our costume here. She's a great costume designer. We didn't want to screw it up. And then also I told Vice, if you're going to send me down there, I get to go home with the costume. So I've got my mask here.
Look at that. Yeah, that's the real deal. That is authentic. I'm glad you went through her because what did you discover about what she does for these crews?
Yeah, one of the coolest things I like about Cajun Mardi Gras and Courier is how grassroots it is, how in the community it is. These costumes aren't bought off of Amazon for the most part, or at Walmart, or like Party City or something like that. They're handmade by the people in the community. And we were lucky, a lot of people there, it seemed, made it with their friends. Their grandmother made it. Somebody in their family made it. Somebody in their community made it. We couldn't quite do that. We didn't want to screw it up. We thought about shooting some shots in the office of us, attempting to make a good outfit. Luckily, we, figured it was another good way to inject ourselves in the community a little bit as I talked to the costume designer. We needed to anyways. And she created this amazing, all blue suit with these fringes across that kind of look like a swamp monster thing. The mask is just beautiful. It's got a shuttlecock as the nose. It's got this green bag type material you would use for fruit as the mouth. It's got a gold tooth. It's got these little piece of plastic and eyeballs here, and you look through the top here. Oh man, I felt so cool wearing it, and it was cool to be semi-anonymous even with the cameras because our camera crew was dressed up too. So even though we did stick out with the cameras, if you were looking from a distance, you wouldn't see us there. And I think we captured a lot more authentic moments. And also talking to people afterwards, them being like, "Oh, Vice was out there? I didn't see them." I was like, "Good, that's what we wanted."
Yeah. So, what was the reception from some of the locals that you're interacting with that you're doing the cruise with, that you're interviewing? What was it? Was it receptive? Did people were they happy to share their this culture with you and a national audience?
On the kind of the before pre-production style, there was some hesitancy. But I like the hesitancy. Every community I've ever sat down with or done a documentary with, there's some hesitancy. And if there wasn't, I wouldn't want to be there because then it would just be, a tourist environment where, it's not, no one feels really connected to it. It's just something you can come do no matter what or whatever. So it was good to hear some of them be like, all right, well, what do you want out of it? I want to make sure you're doing it right. Are you going to fulfill all the steps that it takes to kind of get the buy-in from the community? If I'm going to put my stamp on or be interviewed in it, I want to make sure your heart is in the right place. I think it's helpful that I'm from the South originally. I think there's a lot of people from outside the South that have made documentaries about the South that kind of think of the South as exotic a little bit, or almost infantile, or looking down on it, almost thinking, "Oh, there's these charming, quaint people down here in the South. Look at this little quaint piece of it's just kind of this from a superior standpoint or something. And I wanted to tell this
Right.
documentary through a Southerner's
We
point of
call
view.
him quaint.
I know. It's like they think it's a compliment, but I'm like, no, you're like talking down to us. So I don't understand what you're talking about, you know? So I wanted to tell a Southern story through a Southerner's point of view. And a lot of the context of the documentary is me talking about how I'm a proud Southerner. But what does it mean to be a proud Southerner? It's just something we've kind of always said. And especially if you move outside of the South, you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder, especially in New York City, which is kind of the opposite of Alabama, where I'm from. You'll even hear like Hank Jr., you know, really like talking down in New York City in his songs, and vice versa. You'll hear people in New York City in songs be like, I'm not going down to Alabama or Louisiana or wherever. So there's a bit of a chip on my shoulder there. So I kind of want to unpack while I was down there. Why am I so proud of Mardi Gras? Why am I so proud of the South? What does that mean? What are the good parts? What are the bad parts? What do we leave behind? What do we take with us?
That's awesome. So y'all came last year?
Yeah, last year, 2024, February, went to 2 different runs in Church Point, another one outside of Eunice. Had a ball, Super Bowl time. Got to go hang out and watch Super Bowl at some of these bars too. I wish we were down there for this one with this New Orleans Super Bowl. That would have been great too.
Oh yeah, it was a good time. The entire Louisiana was kind of really just joyous and excited to
I saw the combination of like it's Carnival season but you're catering everything to the Super Bowl, but it's kind of cool to have the Super Bowl. So
Yeah, I don't know how the hotels did it in New Orleans, but with everything going on, but still a little bit early in the Carnival season, so they're able to really pull it off. And it seems outside of the actual game, the entire Super Bowl experience in New Orleans was awesome, and a great representation for our state. But kind of back to West Louisiana here in the Cajun Mardi Gras. Was it back then? I can't remember. Was it wet?
It wasn't too wet on this one. Luckily, I got rolled around a bunch in the grass and everything. Luckily, it didn't get too muddy, but everybody kept talking about that. You'll end up getting thrown in there. We do have one amazing shot at the Church Point run where luckily people were pretty down to like point out people, hey, go do something crazy for the cameras here. And they were like, one of the older guys, one of the captains on a horse, gathered up some of the guys like, hey, you guys go dive in that ditch. Go make some mud, go. And they like slid across in slow motion across the ditch, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah. Now, the last time the Cajun Mardi Gras was kind of showcased to kind of the national or even global audience was with the late great Anthony Bourdain when he came down here. And although I love Bourdain and everything, that a lot of the stuff that he did, you could tell that he was like, through his face, just seeing some of the stuff, he was just kind of like, this is kind of weird. But it sounds like you guys took more of an attitude of like, we're gonna be one of you guys this weekend, in which he did some of that too, getting dressed up and whatnot, but you could you could still tell that he was kind of an outsider. And I doubt that his camera crew was wearing all like the get-ups and whatnot. So you guys really immersed yourselves, I think, the right way.
Yeah, I didn't see the Anthony Bourdain one until after we'd already done our shooting and everything, which is probably a good thing, so it didn't influence me too much. But he's a hero of mine. Every documentarian's hero is Anthony Bourdain, and his death really hit me pretty hard. But yeah, I want this is fun for me. I mean, maybe he's a little older at the time and has seen so many things that that's part of the interesting part of this Mardi Gras too, is you'll go to some of these other Mardi Gras in New Orleans, Mobile, or even some other places, and it's usually kind of older members of the societies that have bought in, that have the money, that ride on the floats, that throw the stuff, that throw the balls, that have these exclusive clubs. And Cajun Mardi Gras, some of it, especially that Church Point, was a young man's game. It was a little violent out there. People were tackling each other, trying to get the chickens. There's a lot of drinking and running around. And you kind of have to be pretty physically able for some of this stuff to even like make these runs happen. And my crew had a hard time. It was very physical for them to have to carry all the cameras around with them. We didn't know exactly where the runs were going. We didn't have maps of like where anything was happening, so we couldn't like think ahead. They just had to carry anything they thought they would need with them, which was pretty tough.
Oh, I couldn't imagine, because we're actually me and some of my team will be down there this year shooting some video, some behind the scenes stuff of actually John Weatherall, Mr. Weatherall, doing his thing and whatnot. So I'm already trying to think like for the equipment and what I'm gonna have to do.
Take some tips from me, because the whole Church Point day, and I don't even know if John knows this necessarily, was my plan for it was to follow John all day at Church Point, getting all his shots. Like, sure, we would get our shots too along with him, but we'd get shots of him getting the shots. We interview him, like in the morning, we hop on a float with them. They've kind of got these like more rural style tractor floats out there, along with the more traditional on your feet kind of runs. And so we get on with them 5 a.m. We get a couple great shots. We stop at a gas station, get a couple of him doing that. And our first stop, we sit down with him, get a deeper interview. And then he says, all right, get on the beer cart. One, on the beer cart, no women allowed. One of my camera people and my director is a woman. So then they had to like figure out how to keep up with me and my boy Samir, who are both guys who were allowed on the beer cart to shoot. And they were struggling carrying everything. We were like, put some on the beer cart, come on. But then we were like, all right, where's John at? Is he over here? Is he over there? Well, I don't want to get off the beer cart yet. We didn't see John the rest of the day. We got some amazing shots. It didn't go as planned, but everything worked out. So I guess, do your best at following John around, but he's on the move and he's going to get his,
Yeah, for sure, man. And people know what he looks like now. And so like, they're looking for him. They see this camera and they're like, oh, Mr. Weatherall. Then they start, dancing and doing all the things.
Well, here's the other thing that got me too, man, because we got some amazing stuff there for sure. And I'm really glad the way it worked out. He had probably his most viral video was from that day. There's a gas station out there near Church Point. And we had met there in the morning to like kind of get some drinks or do whatever. And then we get separated. He must have backtracked back. And it was a bunch of these like sorority type girls with the Cajun things on their legs. And they all do the Mr. Weatherall dance out there. And that thing went so viral. Like, no, we should have been there to capture all these girls doing the like iconic dance. But no, we were too busy like chasing greased pigs around,
Yeah, right. No, man. All the girls with their Stanley Cups and whatnot.
Yeah, it was the Stanley. I forgot the Stanley Cups too. It was so on right then last year. That was like peak Stanley Cup season.
Yeah, man. I just love going through all the comments of, folks who are not from Louisiana or aware of like what this is. They're like, what am I looking at right now? And every now and then you see a comment like, oh, you clearly never been to South Louisiana or Southwest Louisiana specifically.
Yeah. No, it was wild, man. We had a great time on that one. The whole experience was great. And one of the big things I took from all of this was how cool it was to see these communities come out together. This wasn't some like manufactured by a bank parade or sponsored by this or whatever. It was just people coming out in costumes they made, talking with other people in the community. I just think like there's a bigger series we're working on now. We've shot some other episodes that are going to go in this series along with this one, which will be the first episode, kind of talking about how America has this loneliness crisis. Everybody keeps talking about all these articles about how we're all lonely, we're more divided than ever. We're all hyper individualistic. Everybody's trying to do their own thing and no one feels like they're part of a community or the village like we used to be. And then to go down here and see people doing these traditions, holding on to their Cajun heritage, trying to like keep that French going, trying to keep these Mardi Gras traditions going, and everybody feeling like no matter where you are, you can join in. And in fact, you're supposed to join in. You're not supposed to stand off on the sideline. You're supposed to come in and do this kind of thing. And I think that's what could be possibly what makes Mardi Gras great, And I think that's the important part of the tradition to bring forward is this inclusivity and having everyone in the community play their part. If you're not in the run, like some of the younger guys that are tackling things, you can still be out there doing the dances. You can be helping make the costumes. You can be at one of these houses throwing the chicken out. And everybody, like, there's a larger lesson too of like providing food for the community. Like, you have the chicken to provide, we'll come by and dance and hang out, throw us the chicken, like, let's feed the community. And I think there's a lot America could learn from this community.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I believe that wholeheartedly as well. And it's cool that coming down here showed you guys like, oh, wow, maybe there's something to this, not just, what they're doing in Southwest Louisiana, but in all of America, finding these little pockets where community is trying to hold on to each other and that identity of not individualism, but us as a community, as a group. But yeah, I'm biased, but to me, there's no better place to see that than here in South Louisiana. Something I also read and one of the highlights of this documentary was that you really got, you saw something and were excited about the kind of the youth movement that is happening in Cajun Mardi Gras. Where as an outsider who's now been indoctrinated into this world, what can you speak on that as far as, maybe what the future holds?
Yeah, and it was amazing. We've sat down with some other communities, mostly around the New York area so far, and talked to others around America. And there's a lot of older traditions in America that older people are trying to pass on and just aren't happening. People are busy. People are broke. People can't afford to be part of these interesting clubs that people used to find these third places in. But when we were down there in Louisiana, young people were reaching out to us. They saw what we were like, hey, I want to talk about Cajun culture. Like, come talk to me. I want to speak in French. Is that okay? Kind of thing. Like, it was super cool to hear. Shout out to my good friend Scott Hawley that grew up in Lafayette down there. He was part of some of these French schools. His mom taught French in one of these schools. And he talked about that too before I ever went down there to ask more about the French culture and how it was, I learned from the books I was reading from Jordan about how it was almost like beaten out of the community at one point, almost gone. And then in like the 90s, 2000s, and even more now, people are kind of realizing this diversity of thought, this diversity of language, this different culture is actually something to be extremely proud of. And it's something that makes your community interesting. It makes America better as a whole. And so I think a lot of young people are saying, we were almost taken, something was almost taken from us. And now we've got to bring that back. This is important to us. And identity is a huge thing right now. Like, what are we as Americans? What are we as Southerners? That was what I was trying to identify a bit in the documentary. And Cajun people down there, especially young people, they know. They feel strong about it, which I almost feel jealous of, that they're like, no, I know what I am. I know I'm Cajun, and I know I'm going to help bring this back, that they have kind of a mission to say, you try to take, like, almost how an embattled community, like back against the wall kind of thing, can inspire people. And I think it helps that these traditions down there are fun. Yeah. Mardi Gras is fun. There's a lot of Southern traditions that are like, they're traditions, but they're not necessarily fun. And Mardi Gras is cool and a great way to like yearly organize this idea that this needs to keep going. That's another element I wanted to cover in Mardi Gras in general, not just Cajun Mardi Gras, how these crew organizations that are not, some sort of like where you work or religion. It's literally people getting together with their neighbors and starting an organization, and how that can really impact politics, how that can impact your city, like having this idea that it's you and your friends and your neighbors that get together to make something happen, not some ethereal other third party that like, this is how we do it. We organize like this.
We'll be right back to the episode in just a bit, but first, I want to hear from our friends over at NetScore. We're here with the founder of NetScore, Tim Benson, friend of the show. Tim.
Yes, sir.
I'm a small business owner with AcadianaCasts. How can NetScore help me and others like me?
Well, what we see from people that are in similar situations, make sure your website's optimized, make sure that Google recognizes what you do and can easily rank you in Google searches. And also just make sure you're active on social media. I know that's easy to say, but it's so easy to overlook as well too. Make sure you're posting, and you may even want to try some paid advertising, get some more eyeballs your way. So we can easily help out with that.
Okay. How do you guys help out with that?
So we'd find out what service are you primarily doing right now. We could help assist on the social media side. Our team can actually post for you. Just give us an idea of what you like, what your personality is of your business, and we can get content out for you in a done for you format. And then on the website side, listen, if you are not happy with where your website is, or if you don't even have a website, think of your website as your home base on the internet. And that home base has to look really good, and it's got to be visible. So we can help create your website. We can revamp your website, and we can do it pretty fast too. We've got team members of different backgrounds that can fit the personality of your business.
Well, there's all kind of different types of businesses, like it's like a snowflake. Each one's kind of unique, right? And I use, in part of my business, this new AI and certain things, whether it's writing copy or in my editing software. But you guys have like an AI element as well that people can use with NetScore.
Right. So what's really cool is I developed an AI marketing assessment. So you can plug in all of your information about your business, and it will give you a diagnostic of what things you're doing great and what things you might need to work on. And then we can get that report and know exactly where to start in your business.
Well, okay, I'm sold. Where should I go to find out more information?
So you can go to netscorepro.com or send us an email, info@netscorepro.com. Our team will be more than happy to help anybody out, help you guys out too.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, NetScore. Let's get right back to the conversation now. I love everything that you're saying, and it's cool that you really got to see this firsthand. And as a documentarian, as an interviewer coming down here, did y'all have any trouble speaking with people as far as the accent goes?
A little bit. It helped. I've got a bit of a Southern accent myself. It's funny when I'm in New York, I'm the Southern guy, with the thick accent that people always say to me, like, "Oh, what is that accent? What accent?" It's like, I don't have an accent. You have an accent. Mine's the normal one. Why do you think you're the normal one? But this is what normal is, But when I go down south now, if I've been up here too long, people think I've lost my accent. And there's always like something in between there, but I think it turns on a little bit when I'm down there. I think people relate a little more automatically. The Cajun accent, is a different beast to the most part. And it was only a couple of older gentlemen that really threw me for a loop. Some bar conversations. We went to Mamu, then I think it's Lundi Gras the night before Fat Tuesday, and they throw this like once a year party with some great Cajun musicians. I think the bars only open on Saturdays, maybe usually, but they opened it up for this one. I think it was, Fred's. And there was a couple older gentlemen there drinking, and the music's a little loud, and they throw some Cajun accent at you, and you're like, I have no idea. Is that? Are you speaking French, or is this a different language, or
well, the thing that always bothered me about, Louisiana accents portrayed in media is, all the time you'll see like more like the water boy, or like, I'll tell you, boy, we got to get your gator down. But like
foghorn leghorn style.
Yeah, right. No one really talks like that. But also, depending on where you are in Louisiana, even like if you're in a city like New Orleans or like Lafayette, there's different little pockets within the city of itself of accents. And so it's always funny to me whenever I see people try to like impersonate it.
And traveling will open your mind so much, and I wish it wasn't so expensive to do. And I wish people could do more. I got very lucky to be sent down there with Vice, and Jordan said this one time on the bus. Said, "Is there any like great Cajun media portrayals or negative ones or anything?" He's like, "Well, yeah, you got Waterboy. It's like a negative one kind of." I just never had thought in my mind like, yeah, it is a Cajun, like it's looking down on Cajun people a bit, like he's like mentally not all there, and there's all this like goofy stuff, and I never thought of it that way. But I'm sure people there do too, like think about that one. Like I think of Forrest Gump and things like that from Alabama, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that one either. Especially if people call me Forrest Gump up here or something like that. But yeah, it takes traveling and meeting new people to kind of get that perspective of like when something's kind of messed up or not.
Well, Forrest Gump rules. I would love for that. I would love for him to be from Louisiana. The Waterboy, I'm not so
I love his traveling and his charm. I don't know if his IQ level is good to be compared to or not. It depends on the context, I guess.
Right. Well, so what is you on your own when you go back to your friends and whatnot, or your family, and they're asking you about like your job, and you tell them like, oh, I was down in South Louisiana for a little bit. Like, what do you tell people in kind of like close quarters about your experience?
It was wild. I got all bruised up and muddy and crazy, and I'm like, it's not like New Orleans. Don't think New Orleans. Don't think I was just getting beads thrown at me or whatever. I was getting tackled. I was getting whipped. That was a big part. I got whipped a bunch of times. Like I was exhausted. I was hungover, but I kept telling everyone that would listen that we got to go back next year. We've got to make these costumes. We got to go back next year. It was beautiful. It was something like I've never seen in America before. It was almost like being in a different country, which was really cool. But that's America for you. We do have these like cool niche communities all over. And I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I've done a decent amount of interesting things in the last year. I went to King's Day in the Netherlands recently, which is this cool, like everybody's wearing orange in the canals and partying. It's very cool and unique for the Netherlands. I went to a cup match in Bermuda, which is this great cricket match where there's a very similar group called the Gombies. They're there that wear these fringed outfits as well and have this like mass tradition. But there's nothing like this in America, I don't think. Maybe the Mummers in Philadelphia do something kind of similar, but like mass traditions is just not a thing we do in America that often. So I just tell them if you're going to travel across the world to go see some cool foreign tradition that like you think is exotic, go down to Louisiana first, because this is like from the same country you're from, and you're missing out on this really unique tradition that you felt like you had to travel 1,000 miles for, when really you just need to go down to Louisiana.
Yeah. Where'd y'all stay?
Stayed in a pretty rundown hotel outside of Eunice. Definitely wasn't anything to write home about. I don't even, maybe it was what's another town next to Eunice? I can't remember the exact name. Either way, I didn't have to do the logistics, so thank God.
Yeah, could have been in Ville Platte, could have been Mamu.
No, neither of those.
Speaking of Mamu, this thing I have right behind me. This is a Damn It doll. And I got this in Mamu, but if you're really upset and you just got to get out your frustrations, you damn it.
Is this voodoo adjacent, or by being stereotypical?
It kind of has like a voodoo kind of look to it. But yeah, I got this at the Hotel Kazan in downtown Mamu.
There we go.
But yeah, just little things like that just make Louisiana so fun and interesting.
There's this other cool element that I learned so much about the music down there too. I had no idea about this cool. They called it French music or Cajun music down there. I learned about Dennis McGee, who's super cool. They played at Dennis McGee's grave on one of our runs. That was amazing. Listening to Jordan's music, he was a top 5 in my Spotify Wrapped this year. And
Wow.
if you've ever heard, most people in this audience probably haven't listened to it, but you should check it out. There's this band called Kneecap out of Northern Ireland, and they do their rapping in Irish or Gaelic or whatever you want to call it. And they've made it cool again in Ireland to speak Irish. And they're very similar to the Cajun community that the language was kind of beaten at them, probably even worse in Ireland, honestly. And there's this big like youth movement of like, no, you took something from us, but it's tough because it's not practical. It's not necessarily like you don't use it at work. There's not a lot of great media. Sure, there's like some older people that try to create some fun children's TV shows in it. And I know there's some like that in Louisiana too, which are like extremely valuable. But you got to make it cool again. And Kneecap made it cool for them. And everybody there is like taking Irish lessons and singing and rapping in Irish. And to see Jordan Thibodeau, Joel, all these other guys make cool music, to go to that bar, Fred's and Mambu, and see all these young people dancing to the music and really embracing it. Like, I don't know how else to do it. Like making movies, making music. Like it not only has to be practical, it's got to be cool. And it looks like Cajun French is kind of getting there, that it might be cool again.
Yeah, and we've had a Cajun artist on our show named Dustin Gaspar, and what he's kind of doing is in his songs is he's doing like hybrids, where part of it is in English, part of it is in Louisiana French, and then kind of blends it together, and so that he's trying to figure out that same equation of making it cool but also accessible and applicable. But I'm really glad you got a chance to experience the music. You got to come down to Festival Acadian, which is our big Cajun music festival here in Lafayette. And also in April, we do Festival International, which is I think the world's largest or country's largest free international music festival. So just a couple other things. Yeah, keep on your radar, because I'm sure you're itching to come back.
Oh yeah, I want, man. I've been trying to figure out if I could come down this year, and it's not going to work out. But it's going to be on my calendar every year from now on to do it. And luckily too, they have a thing called Swamp in the City in May, where Cajun musicians come up and play in Red Hook. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of these guys come up and listen to some music, dance around a bit. So it's good. New York. That's the good thing about New York. New York's the most expensive place on earth. It could be frustrating at times, but hey, you get about everything, even Cajun stuff you can get sometimes.
Yeah, we got to ship it out to you, export it. Well, man, I appreciate you. Wanting to kind of go down this rabbit hole via this documentary, and I'm glad that it's opened up potential to do other things similar to this in other communities around America. If there's kind of one thing that we didn't touch on that you'd like to kind of hit on before we kind of wrap up here, what is there anything that you want to first off, let me ask you, where can people watch the documentary?
It's going to be on Vice's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Vice. It should be coming out on February 18th, Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Okay, perfect. And then maybe not the message you would give to people here in South Louisiana or especially those who frequent the Cajun Mardi Gras, but maybe someone who might be watching this who's not familiar. What would be your message to them in regards to this documentary and your experience?
The Cajun culture and Cajun people are beautiful and something very unique. You've seen a lot of rural communities all over America kind of disappearing. There's not much liveliness there. There's mostly you hear negative stories about rural communities, but in Cajun country, there's this amazing lively culture full of young people, surprisingly, where a lot of these rural areas in the United States have all stories about how the young people left. I think there's a story about if you build community, if people feel like they're part of something special, they will stick around and build with you. And so much of rural America feels like there's nothing there for them. If there's not a job there for them to make good money, there's not a reason to stay. And there's a lot of brain drain from all these places because they don't feel like they're part of it. It doesn't mean anything to them, really. It's just, they're born there and they can leave, whatever. But if you're Cajun, it sounds like, if you're part of this, what sounds like somewhat embattled community, they feel like there's a reason to stay, a reason to build, even if it's a little tougher than it would be to leave for some larger town that has an easier job to find or something. So I think the story is, if you're concerned about your hometown losing people, brain drain, or anything like that, you've got to make people feel like they're part of a community, part of a village. And you've got to do stuff like this where the community comes together and feeds the community. You got to, I think there's a lot more to life than what your next buck is and, where your next job is, but you've got to build it and it's going to take time. And I think the Cajuns have done a great job of that. And everybody should check out this documentary to see what they've done.
Well, it certainly seems like it's in good hands with you, just the way that you're talking about it, seeing some of the clips and, talking to some of the folks behind the scenes of who you interviewed and whatnot. I know a lot of people are excited about it, excited to see it. And I'm excited for people outside of South Louisiana to take a look at it, but even the people here, because, we've got we got so many people here who have never experienced that for themselves. I mean, it's just right in their own backyard, really. So I'm excited just to kind of get really high-end productions and good storytellers like you guys at Vice kind of on this story and putting it out.
That's my word for anybody that's there. Like, don't just because you're used to it doesn't mean it's not special. You know, I wish I was down there every year now. So don't forget to embrace it. Life gets busy, you know, but make sure to make room for this, because this is one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And I'm really glad we could make something that hopefully you guys are proud of when it comes out.
Yeah, don't take it for granted. Real quick, just a couple little rapid fire kind of Louisiana questions. What was your favorite food dish that you had when you were down here?
Oh boy, the boudin sausages on one of the runs. I was exhausted. It starts at 5 a.m. I was drunk. There was a chicken on a pole. People were climbing up trying to get, and there was like these coolers full of boudin sausages, and I was just dirty, walking around with 2 sausages in my hand, grease, no napkins or drink or anything, but they were like the most delicious things I could eat, both because they were just good, and 2, because I was absolutely starving and tired, and they just hit the spot in the moment.
What was the beverage of choice?
Ooh, a lot of Miller Lights, I guess. I'm a rum guy, big Gosling's rum guy, but at the time I had like a bag of beers I was trying to like carry with me on this run. And honestly, next year, here's a tip: if I come back again, I'm going to get one of these architecture tubes, which I used in college at one point, because I had some fun in college, if you can't tell. But
Sure.
You get an architecture tube, like where you put like plans in, you can like kind of put beers lined up and have it on your back. So that's what I'm going to do next year if I come back.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to. And look, you're already trying to upgrade the upgrade the run for you and the experience. Did you learn how to 2-step while you're down here?
No, but they did. Jordan Thibodeau and Joel came up to New York and Brooklyn a couple months back, and they were doing dance lessons. So me and my wife were trying to figure out how to do that. But I'm an okay dancer. I'm a decent dancer, but I am awful at these like planned out dances. I never liked the Soldier Boy in school or these other ones where you had to like learn the moves. I just kind of like to feel it. So no, I gotta learn something.
Yeah, we got to get you on that. Did you guys fly in to Lafayette, or did you fly in New Orleans and drive down?
New Orleans, and got some good food while we were there too. That was my second best food, probably, was the swamp plate at one of these New Orleans establishments that was all, frogs and alligator and catfish and all these other things fried up.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but there's kind of like a big rivalry between Lafayette and kind of Cajun country and the New Orleans area and the city when it comes to food.
Oh, I bet it's slightly different, right? Even the accents are different.
Yeah, it's slightly different. Like you got some similarities. I mean, you got people who grew up over here who then moved to New Orleans, and vice versa. And it's always kind of like a melting pot. New Orleans is more of a melting pot. But everyone's got their own styles of doing stuff.
There's a huge diversity in the South, and if I wish I could do a series that more concentrates on the entire South, even, because outside of the South, it's great. The South's amazing that we have a regional characteristic. People feel Southern. People don't feel Northeastern or Western or maybe the Midwest, but even then it's not something people are like proud of, like the way people are proud to be Southern. But people outside the South see it all as one region, even all the way up to Virginia, over to Oklahoma, down to the bottom of Florida. But us Southerners know half those places don't even count. I don't count Texas and Oklahoma. I don't count Virginia. I don't count Southern Florida. I think most Southerners probably agree I'm more of a deep South guy. But even then, each one of those states, each one of those regions, even amongst Louisiana, like you're saying, New Orleans versus Lafayette, it's different. It's diverse. There's so many different communities that make up the South. And I think I would love to have people realize that a little more.
Yeah, just kind of you talking here maybe made me kind of think like some of these other communities across America, where we have these festivals. We've got Mardi Gras. We've got the culture of going to your neighbor's house and having a crawfish boil and a couple of drinks on the weekend, or on a Tuesday. Who cares? But where these type of cultural community things are kind of absent other places, you've seen the growth of like sports really blow up. And so, I'm thinking of just like Philadelphia fans, they rally around their teams because, and maybe I'm just spitballing here, but maybe it's because there is a lack of other options when it comes to.
I do wish there was and that's something charming about the Cajun Mardi Gras thing too, is because these are professional sports teams that have gotten such dedication. Same with college, from Alabama. Auburn, Alabama is humongous. It's so much people's personality and how they get together as a tradition. And that's a cool Southern tradition too. all the tailgating, all the college football stuff. Really cool.
Which we do as well. Almost better than anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know, man. The LSU fans are both brutal and the best at partying. Like them and Ole Miss, maybe, except for LSU's food is just better because Louisiana food is probably the best food in America, right? It's got this amazing combination of Southern food that's like better than anywhere else in America. And then you add in the French influences. Like, come on, like it's almost unbeatable.
Well, we got to get you down to a Raging Cajuns game here in Lafayette. Check out some.
I can hear the rivalry already. I'm thinking LSU, and you're saying Raging Cajuns. You know, I keep forgetting I'm on the Lafayette podcast here.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it. But there's so many, LSU and the UL fans hate hearing this. I went to UL, I graduated there, but they've got more of a stranglehold when it comes to especially football across the entire state of Louisiana. But there's a loud and proud group of Raging Cajuns who love their school, love their team, and are willing to go to war against LSU fans and the big power that comes from Baton Rouge. But man, I once again I appreciate you doing the documentary. What's that? Huh? Look at my phone. Okay, we might have one more question. Oh, we do, from our producer Luke. So. Two questions. What is the main differences between Alabama and Louisiana Mardi Gras?
There's a big, one, moon pies. I don't know if you guys have moon pies. Love moon pies. They even have a moon pie, like midnight New Year's Eve clock that falls. That's a big one there. The kind of parades are different. There's a little more segregation there, honestly, which is sad. They have a black queen king and a white king. You have to look it up. There's a good documentary called Order of Myths. You have to check out. It's very much more balls and exclusive societies, like the Cajun Mardi Gras. I mean, New Orleans has these exclusive societies, these mass societies, but the one in Mobile is like probably the most exclusive. Like we're very much about the ball culture more than anything else. And then the biggest one that I love and I support the most about Mobile Mardi Gras is the Joe Cain parade. There's a guy named Joe Cain that brought back Mardi Gras in Mobile back in the day. There was hundreds of years ago Mardi Gras, and then it stopped for the Civil War, and then there was a couple of years of Reconstruction, and Joe Cain's the guy that brought it back. Joe Cain is the people's parade there. It's not, you don't have to be part of some exclusive club that might or might not let you in that needs thousands and thousands of dues. You can just show up and parade there. And Joe Cain leads the parade, and his, what do they call it? Widows. Joe Cain's widows go to his grave. He's an actual person with a grave. They've got all these like ladies in all black. No one knows who they are. They've never given interviews, and they wail at his grave, and everybody shows up. But because they're one of the few exclusive people on that day, people are upset they can't be part of that. So there's the mistresses, and they dress in all red and covered in all red in these like funeral kind of clothes, and they have this rivalry, and they're both mad at each other. And then you've had 1,000 other splinter organizations that are a lot of fun. Now they have the Joe Cain Misters, which are the mysterious gay lovers of Joe Cain. And so you just really can like go off on these like thousands of different directions on that day. And if you and your friends want to create a different mystic society on Joe Cain Day, you can. I think that's kind of like the more of the story I would want to tell.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've always heard like the back and forth of Mobile being like, wow, we started it. And New Orleans is like, well, we do it better. And then Cajun Mardi Gras is like, we don't care. Come over here if you want.
Yeah.
But no, I've got some.
I think people need to do a little more. Even down there, people don't seem to go to the different Mardi Gras, and I think up and down the Gulf Coast, there's different celebrations in different ways. And I would love to go to. That was always a dream of mine to get like with my good friend Cameron. That's talked about a bunch of times from Mobile, like getting an RV, and you can kind of hit them up all along, like doing a bachelor trip or something like that, because it goes all the way down the Gulf Coast, all the way to Tampa, pretty much. It's not quite. It's celebrates slightly differently, and some of it's they have a. You can kind of kick it off with that pirate day they have there, Gasparilla Day. It's kind of Mardi Gras adjacent. You go down, you go to Miramar, Florida, Pensacola. They do some stuff too. Biloxi and Mississippi even have some celebrations. They're not quite as robust as some of the others. I think you can go as far as Galveston. I think they even have some Mardi Gras celebrations. So you can kind of go up and down that coast and see the different ways they do it.
Yeah, dude, it'd be cool to create like a map, maybe Vice will have to take that one on and create the map.
At some point, we got to get that RV Vice on the road. Come join in, and like we'll hit them up every other day.
Well, man, yeah. Let me know if there's anything else that we can do to help push any type of stories you guys are trying to do. You're now an official friend of the show, friend of the program. So we're happy to support our friends and their endeavors and whatnot. But final question that comes from our producer Luke: did you try any drive-through daiquiris?
Yes.
And
we had to do the drive-through.
Explain that concept to people outside of Louisiana.
I've got 3 good friends actually. Jacob, Zach, and Scott. They're all part of my good friends from Nashville, from the Lafayette area. So when I brought that up, like, what do I need to do while I'm in Lafayette? And they threw out a bunch of their favorite drive-through daiquiri places. And I knew about them. I've been to New Orleans. I've been down in the area before I ever moved up to New York. But my director, associate producer, and camerawoman, they were blown away that you could drive through and get an alcoholic beverage. And like, they had no idea either, because around COVID, it became a little more socially acceptable. A lot of New York restaurants and things started doing these like to-go cups. You weren't supposed to drink them on the street, but you could take them with you, but that was a huge deal even, that like you could even walk away with a drink. So then to go down, I'm like, this is pre-COVID. You could drive through you could drive through a place and get a drink. And that's the only place in America you could do something like that. And I'm a big fan of like Louisiana's, or at least Southern Louisiana's like combination of like, there's so much religiosity in the South that doesn't allow us to do fun things like that. But Southeast or Southern Louisiana seems to have figured it out a little bit. You can be religious and have a little fun too.
Yeah, that's because we're mostly all Catholic. We like to have a little good time,
I grew up in the very conservative Protestant area called Church of Christ, and you couldn't even get drinks on a Sunday. You couldn't. No bars open on Sunday. No liquor stores open on Sunday. Even the liquor stores that are open during the week are like odd hours controlled by the state. Meanwhile, Southern Louisiana is like, just drive on by, grab a daiquiri.
As long as the straw is not in the daiquiri, then you're good to go. You're good to drive around with it.
There you go. All right, that's a good lesson. Everybody can listen up and do that.
Yeah. Well, Jackson, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for telling our story. You can check out the documentary once again on the Vice YouTube channel, February 18th. It's called Gatherings, Cajun Mardi Gras. It's a Vice documentary. Jackson Garrett will end the show the same way we do for everyone, for all of our guests. You can take a look right directly into your camera, as you have been doing the entire episode. It could be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be advice, anything that you want to impart on the internet world at large to end this episode with. The floor is yours.
Go down to Cajun Mardi Gras, have a good time, embrace your family, embrace your culture. I had a great time. I want to be back anytime I can, and share my documentary so they'll let me make more of this stuff.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Since you made it this far, might as well give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever you got to do to alert you that there's a new episode out. Look, it helps us grow, and it allows us to give you the content that, well, you deserve. If you want to be a sponsor, if you want to be a guest, if you just want to berate me, hey, all goes to the same place. info@AcadianaCasts.com. Email info@AcadianaCasts.com. And for more locally sourced podcasts, go to AcadianaCasts.com. Bye.